I am tackling my first ever full marathon later this year, and I wouldn't be able to do it, to be completely honest, without my running coach, Simon Rhodes from RhodesRunner. He's an absolute legend and joins me on the phone now. G'day, Simon.
Okay.
So we'll start with where to begin as a runner, I guess, Simon, because there's a lot of people I've noticed, especially in Christchurch, who have taken up running in the past 12 to 24 months. It's booming at the moment. I'll ask you that first. Have you seen a bit of a boom in running lately around New Zealand?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the easiest sports to get into.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel that they should be able to run and can run. So the most important thing is doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. And if you are starting off and maybe you're like, I want to run my first 10K, half marathon, or even full marathon, where do we start then? How do we start running the right way?
Well, if you're a beginner or you haven't run for years, you need to give your body time to build up slowly. And the key is the further distance. So if you're thinking of doing a marathon or even a half marathon, you really do need to start as early as possible. So a lot of runners won't pick a program that lasts about 12 weeks. But if you're a real beginner, I'd actually say double that. Go between 18 and 24 weeks. Give your body the time to slowly and progressively increase in fitness so you can tackle that distance.
Yeah. What are some of the mistakes people do make early on? Obviously, that's one of them, not giving themselves enough time. Is rest a problem as well for a lot of people?
Well, it's actually getting that balance between training stress and rest that you need to manage. A lot of beginners will go out gung-ho at the very beginning. They'll go out either too long or too fast and end up injuring themselves and giving up. So it's really important to start at a very low point and then just work your way up progressively. And any training plan, I mean, I'd recommend for 10K and above, you absolutely need a structured program that helps you progressively build your base level of fitness before it starts getting into building specific speed or endurance or any race-specific goal pace that you might want to achieve.
Yeah, I guess that's the scary part nowadays, Simon, as well, is that there's so much information out there. And to be honest, from what I've seen, and then once I started working with you, a lot of it is wrong and based on who knows what. So how do we make sure what we're, I guess, researching to get started or to train for a specific race, how do we make sure that stuff is actually legitimate and what we're doing is beneficial for our running?
Well, I think if you look on the internet, you can get all the information. And too much, actually. And you're right. There is a plethora of information out there. You need to go to someone that is experienced and has done this before, preferably a running coach, someone from a running club. But at the bare minimum, if you pick up a training plan from the internet, it has to have 4 very specific stages to it. And I'd just like to talk to those just briefly so that people understand. So the first stage, so if you're doing, say, a 24-week plan or close to 6 months, you'd want to have a building base phase where between 6 to 8 weeks where you're really just focusing on an easy pace. You're not going out too hard. You're perhaps running 3 times a week and slowly but progressively just increasing that duration by maybe 10 to 15% per week, not going out and also incorporating some of those cross-training activities like circuit training or aerobics and other bits and pieces just to give the body a bit of a change from the running stresses. In the next 4 to 6 weeks, you've really got to look at actually improving the endurance, strength, and speed of your legs. So getting your legs used to moving faster, getting them used to going longer, and this is where we start to build up some of that leg strength. And this is where you would probably introduce maybe one harder workout a week, where you start to do some speed work or some hill work. Just to get your legs used to moving harder, but always keeping that 80-20 balance in place where 80% of the running you do is easy and 20% might be some hill reps or something like that. Now, when I say easy, a lot of people don't understand what that means, but it means conversational pace. It means if you're running harder and you can't maintain a conversation, you're running too fast. Slow down. A lot of the running is done in that space. And then we get into the peak training phase, which is the last 6 to 8 weeks. And this is where we're actually doing some very goal-specific training for the actual event that you're training for. It's 10K, marathon, half marathon. And the training in that phase is very different depending on the race that you're going for. If it's a marathon, for example, you'll start to really build up some of those miles. And you need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared to actually build that into plan. And then, of course, the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, is what's called a taper week. And again, many athletes get this wrong. They either do far too little or far too much. I prefer to use the word peaking rather than taper, but this is where you just reduce the intensity and the duration of your running by about 30% overall. But you still keep your legs turning over. You still keep them fresh. So you arrive on race day absolutely physically ready to go.
Love it. Love it. I'm currently in that peak training phase at the moment, Simon, which I'm finding both really challenging but really quite cool as well, because as you mentioned, it's aiming to run at that goal pace or fine-tune anything that you're maybe a bit uncertain about and run at those further distances. And maybe one thing I'm thinking of that other people who may be looking at running a marathon for the first time that I didn't realise prior to was, you've got to be able to set that time aside to invest in your body, invest in training, and invest in making sure you're strong enough or that you're putting your body in the position to prevent injury. Is that something you hear a lot from clients that you have that they didn't realise maybe how much time and effort they needed to put into their body?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do need to plan this. And it's one of the biggest mistakes that runners make actually is underestimating the amount of time it takes. Running is very easy to do. Just put on your trainers, put on your shorts, go out for a run.
Yeah.
But life gets in the way. And as you begin, certainly as a beginner, if you're beginning maybe 1.5 to 2 hours a week, certainly as you build up, as you found in the build phase here, you're getting up to 4, maybe 5 hours a week of running. And that's built up over time, but you need to have that. And when you're managing kids and a job, and it can be tough. So you need to plan that. That does require a piece of planning. But as you say, you do need to plan those longer runs because they're absolutely essential for getting your legs ready for the marathon distance.
That's right. I think Christchurch is going to be one of the best places in the country to go for a run, firstly because, well, it's flat. But with that being said, when I've done long runs, you've put notes in there to challenge yourself to some inclines from time to time. That's about building strength, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Look, there's no substitute for doing hill work. So if you get the opportunity to go and run up some hills, it's fantastic for the legs. Really good strength work for them, and helps build that stamina. And especially for the marathon and half marathon, when you get into the second half of the race, that's where that hill work will really come to help you out.
I guess one thing I've also realised in training as well is how much of a mental battle it can be, whether that be actually just stepping out the door in the first place and going for that run, or pushing through those first few kilometres when your mind's going, oh, you can still turn around and go home, or even it's the last few kilometres where you're like, you can probably just walk now, you've done a good job. So is there anything you do personally or anything that you teach to clients to help them push through those, I guess, mental barriers? Because maybe when you're first starting running, you're not used to having to challenge yourself in that way mentally.
No, look, you're absolutely right. And the top 2 inches are probably the most important thing that you need to prepare when going in for one of these races. You can prepare the body for the physical challenge it's got, but if you don't turn up on the right day, whether it's training or for the race, with the right mindset, you're going to be in for a world of pain. So, but the great thing about a training plan is that it allows you to practice this. You get when it's pouring with rain or really windy or dark or cold, this is the time you have to go out. And sometimes it takes 5 or 6K to warm up and actually feel into it. But I always tell my runners to get out there, give it a good nudge. If after halfway through you feel like, oh, this really isn't working for me, fine, turn around, go back home. That's absolutely fine. But on the whole, the vast majority of people, once they get into their run, once they get over that first 5 to 8K, they're into it and they do it. But I mean that's part of it. That's part of it to keep through the training program. I think the main thing though is using those long runs, especially as you're training for half and a marathon, as practice for the actual event itself. So use them to practice your hydration and your nutrition. Use them to practice how it feels like when it starts to get tired. A lot of them will have maybe a fast finish or goal pace, and that they're intended for you to do when you're tired so that you can actually feel what it's like in the event and imagine that. So visualization is a very important thing that I ask athletes to do.
For sure. Let's fast forward to that event day. Of course, the Emerson's Dunedin Marathon this year, 15th of September. People from all around the country heading to Dunners, people from Christchurch making the drive down, including myself. Whatever distance it is, what are some, tips or tricks you can suggest for getting that body, that mindset ready for when that gun fires and we're not, running at a 3:20 pace straight off the mark? Unless, of course, you're someone like yourself, Simon.
I'm not quite that quick, but anyway, thank you for that. But, I wish I was. No, look, you're absolutely right. Look, and I think the most important thing is to realise that when a lot of people start to get towards race weekend, they start to get nervous. I mean, one of the things that athletes often comment to me during the taper period is, "Oh, I've got this ache here, or this niggle there, or this pain there," and it's just your mind playing tricks on you. It's go and have a nice massage, go and relax, and on race day it'll be absolutely fine. It just seems to be that as you start to take the intensity off, you get these little niggles that come up. But actually, the key for me is the visualization piece. But also, when you get to actual race day, it's completely normal to have race day jitters. It's completely normal to be nervous about this. And I think we just need to acknowledge that and give ourselves a break. And half the way we get over that is by detailed planning. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up my race pack here. I know where the start line is. I know where the bag drop is. I know, and I know how I'm going to start, because that's the main thing. The race will get you. The last point the race will get you is when the gun goes and you shoot off at 3:20 pace, and then figure out a kilometre into the marathon that you're going to be in some pain.
Yeah.
So go off at your pace. Go off at a conservative pace. A marathon is a marathon. You will pass others as you go through, and don't be worried about others passing you in those early stages.
Give yourself a plug here, Simon. Where can we find you? You've got some fantastic resources online as well. Where can we find all of that?
RhodesRunner.com is here, and yes, I've got a whole bunch of articles around getting started and training plans. And I obviously offer training plans and one-to-one online coaching on a private platform. So. Yep. Anyone's interested, drop me a line.
I can vouch for Simon. He is a bloody incredible coach, and I've really enjoyed working with you, Simon. It's been something that has challenged me, but that's a good thing. I think everyone needs a challenge in their life.
Oh, thanks, Connor. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do.
Yes.
I'll be there at the finish line.
Yeah, can't wait. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Simon. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Connor.